A warm welcome to each one of you. This is the Naomi Talk Show with yours truly, Liz Kenywa, and this is a place where we get to share real life stories that equip you, and you learn something, and you're inspired to do life the way God intended. Because He has a manual of how we ought to do life to avoid some of the challenges that we go through, and even when we encounter them, He knows the how of how we can be able to navigate through those challenges. So today we are having a very special edition. A while back we handled Chronicles of a First-Time Mom, and it was amazing, it was interesting. I hope you've gotten to see the stories by the first-time moms and the many things they got to share, how they were clueless on so many things when the baby arrived. So today we are doing a father's edition, and we want to hear from them. Because we also believe fathers have a blind spot, especially first-time dads. So leo tunataka kusikia kutoka kwao. And I have two amazing gentlemen on set, and I'll quickly allow them to introduce themselves so that we can get deeper into the discussion of today, which is the blind spots of a first-time dad. Karibuni sana, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kindly introduce yourself. Sijui tutaanza pande gani, alphabetically ama namna gani?
Sawa.
Democracy.
Yes.
Democracy.
Aya, kazi kwako.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me on this show.
Karibu.
Pastor Kelvin is my name. Father to two wonderful children, Judah, 4 years old, and Jewel, almost 1.5 now. It's a pleasure to be on this show.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
So, hi everyone. My name is Keith Nyakundi Nyambane, husband to one Anne Wangari Ngunyi, and a father to a little girl, a 10-month girl called Sante Sam Ruel.
Oh, Sante
Sam Zaburi and Ruel.
The names children get these days,
Yes.
Well, they are very prophetic, and I bless the Lord for those names that you're giving. And by the way, these are not deadbeat dads.
Yeah.
These ones are actively involved in their roles, and they understand it very well. That's why we have them here on set. Otherwise, we would not have picked them if we are not sure that they're actively involved in their roles as fathers. So we want to begin from the place of what are some of the misconceptions of fatherhood that we get to hear around?
Well, I think one of the most outstanding in our generation, and we've gotten to see it a lot in the recent times, is that children can grow up without a father. It's a misconception on fatherhood.
Yes.
So for whatever situation, whatever has brought about the situation that a father is not present in a child's life, there's a tendency to want to move on without a father, whether it be the child's biological father or a father figure who can father a child. So I think that's one of the most outstanding misconceptions we are seeing now. This generation has given rise to families that, whereas in days gone by, fathers were like the sole breadwinner. But women today are empowered.
We are super empowered. I can
Super
speak
empowered.
on their behalf, since in this set I'm the endangered species.
So you'll find that in reality, the saying that what a man can do, a woman can do better. It holds true in so many situations today, especially in the corporate world, where earning and being a breadwinner is concerned. So you find that there are many women who earn much more than male counterparts in the same profession. So what happens is that there's a tendency to feel that, you know what, if things are not working out in a relationship, for example, and it could be for whatever reason, that, you know what, I can raise these kids on my own. And in many instances, it is partially true. Because you can provide for children their material needs, but the emotional and spiritual support of a father figure can only be given by the male figure present in that child's life. So that's one of the misconceptions I can say that is really outstanding about fatherhood. Yes.
The super empowered woman, this super empowered woman, I don't know, I'm tempted to ask, so how can we Because as you're saying, we've made the saying go like, what a man can do, a woman can do better. And then the woman arrived where those men were doing better, but nobody has cheered the man. There is a better of the better that they can progress to.
Correct. Correct.
So how can we start
Very
also
true.
working on that?
Very true. I think it calls for two things. I would say two approaches. Number one is that the boy, child, and the father figure needs to be really strengthened and mentored to understand that now these are different roles. Whereas many of us grew up in households where the fathers took the lead in terms of providing. In many households, they were the sole breadwinner where they were present. So we saw our mothers take a back seat. But now we've seen a different generation rise where we are marrying women who are independent financially. They're not dependent on us as the men. And therefore, there needs to come about a way to mentor the man. How do you deal with this scenario and look at the positive side of it? That now you're not having competition in terms of your wife or the mother of your children, but in essence you have a stronger partner who can help you be a better father. Because one of the weaknesses also of the generation past is that fathers were rarely present physically.
They were there to be seen.
Yes, because they had to really
They were really hard.
they had to really work hard, of course, to bring home the bacon. But then if you have a strong partner to support you, then it means that you can have more time to be present in the home and not just relate with your children superficially. So that's the first approach I would say needs to come in. That's the mentorship of men, of young men, to understand how to deal with a stronger woman. And I think also now the other approach would be at the family level. How do we now marry this picture of the strong, independent woman and say that, you know what, families are still God's idea for raising children, that we still need both of you to put your hands on deck. So now we need to look at the whole family as a whole and redefine the concept of the family. How families were looked at in generations past and how the family setup is right now. And now start working on how do we strengthen a family as it is. So we have to work on the situation between a married couple, a man and a woman. How do we strengthen their marriage for them to be able to complement one another?
Wow. I hope you're learning something and you're taking notes. These are not the sessions you just listen to. You need a note, book, and a pen. And you grab a seat, sit down, pengine kahawa, chai, you sip as you take the notes because there's a lot to learn from this session. Keith, still on the misconceptions of fatherhood.
Thank you so much for the question and having us. Just building on what Kelvin has shared, we grew up in a season where our fathers were the breadwinners. Now in today's generation, the ladies own the bakery. So there's any, I own the car, own the house,
exactly.
I run the company. So
wewe unakuja kama?
Yes, exactly. So what you just said, we've now moved from what you do to who you are. Because our fathers and the generation before, they could thump the authority based on bringing the bacon.
Yeah.
Now the bakery is owned by the lady. So the misconception that my value is in what I do is quickly beginning to fade away. Because that thing you're saying about what a man can do, a woman can do better. In the absence of fathers and the mentorship which Kelvin raised, there's come a generation of ladies who grew up mentored and looking for men who are unfathered. We don't have absentee mothers as much as we do absentee dads.
Is it so? I would want to pause at that point because these mothers that are owning the bakeries are relatively also absent.
They're absent, But what are the daughters seeing? They're absent yet visible. The daughters in church, they go and see who's the senior, who's leading worship. It's the ladies.
In fact, let's begin from who is the Sunday school teacher?
Sunday school teacher, it's a lady. Preschool teacher, I've worked in, it's a lady.
99.9.
Yes.
Lady.
And so the mom, the biological mom might not be as visible, but the function of motherhood is not. And so everywhere ladies, the girls are growing up as seeing mothers all around. In churches, they make an announcement, we're looking for Sunday school teachers, preferably the men. And so this boy who's growing up looking for a male figure is growing up with a vacuum. And if you notice some years back, I don't know if it's as prevalent as it used to be, back then when hip-hop and the hip-hop culture, the unfathered artist grew up watching his mom. And so what did he do? Plait his hair and put on earrings. I will not mention names, but they're quite a number.
Yeah.
So we become what we behold. Let me start there. So if you grew up seeing that your parent wears makeup and plaits her hair and does vitu zote, you get to believe that that's what people do. And so they imported a lot of music to us from the West. And so we began to see boys with plaited hair and earrings and with sagged trousers. The reason why in the States people used to wear sagged trousers is because there's a one-size-fits-all trouser in the inmates. So sagging was not form. It was poverty.
We just pick
Yes.
and consume. Pick and consume.
Yes. So we had a generation of boys trying to imitate unfathered men. So to answer your question, the preconception of my value is in what I do and bring, that argument is dying very fast. It's not moving from what can you earn to who are you bringing to the home. And so women now are looking for leadership. I'll pay the bills. Tell us what we're paying for.
What?
I will fund the vision. Give me the vision. I don't have a cash flow problem.
So this man coming into the house,
yes.
Don't forget about bringing the bacon.
Yes.
And the fried chicken and everything and the bread.
Yes.
Is about where do you want us to go?
Yes.
I'll fuel the car.
Yes.
What?
And so in that absence, a lot of men can't keep up. Very few men can live with a fully empowered lady. Very few. They don't, their self-esteem and inner fortitude cannot sustain a conversation with a lady who'll ask her, who are you?
But now, I think I'm only looking at it from, and I would understand that concern because also a woman who is over-empowered, who is not wise, is very dangerous.
Yes.
Because they also don't know how far they can go in whatever they engage in when it comes to this relationship with your spouse.
Yes.
Or with the father of your children. So, wow, it's becoming a delicate balancing act. Okay. Tutasoma. Don't worry. The misconceptions, they seem to be a little bit scary. So from your perspective now, this woman who is over-empowered, again, I want to hear from you, you've heard from him. You have a daughter.
Yeah.
What would you do if, assuming she's now in her 20s, what would you want to see in her that you would want to start doing now to make her to be able to fit in and appreciate the role of a man in her life?
It is said that children are poor listeners, but great imitators. That do not be afraid your children never listen to you. Be afraid they're always watching. And so, beyond telling, she must see how I'm treating her mom.
Exactly.
So the classroom is not exactly what I told her, is what she saw. So how I treat my wife is the template. She will grow up believing that this is how women are treated, and this is how a man behaves. And therefore, she will need to see me being a servant in the house and not a slave master. So that when she grows up empowered and seeing her mom being supported, she will realize no matter how rich I become or no matter how empowered I become, I believe that a man is okay serving. And therefore she will not go out there trying to prove herself. that which is this man who can intimidate me, because she didn't see her dad trying to intimidate the mom. Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting. Now, with all these misconceptions around us, probably I would want to ask the question, what is the state of the family in our society today?
I would say that bringing it back to the discussion on fatherhood, I feel that families are broken, especially along the line of fatherhood. There's something Keith mentioned about the woman and the mother being present in every stage of a child's development. And I feel that the area where families are really struggling is in the area of fatherhood.
Yeah.
So the state of families in our society is that along the line of fatherhood, because Dr. Miles Monroe said, the foundation of a society is the man. I know many have said it's the family, and that's also correct in some way, but he says that when God wanted to start the human race, he started with a man. So the first foundation stone was a man who was a father of the human race. So each family is built on a father. It's supposed to be built on a father. And whether he's present or not, there needs to be an understanding that that is a foundational principle of a family. When you have a strong father, and I don't necessarily mean only physically strong, you know, spiritually strong, emotionally strong and secure, you have a strong family. But when the father is weak, the family suffers, without a doubt. Very rarely do you find a scenario where the mother is weak, where there's a strong father. You know, if you look across any research, any body of research that has been done, there was a research carried out by a church on families. And they saw that where the father attended church, in 90% of the scenarios, where the father attended church and was active in the church and was had a strong relationship with God, the wife followed and the children. So the whole family adopted that stance. But the same group, when they looked at where the father was not active in church, had no, relationship with God per se, the statistics then changed. That for 90% of the families, the father had the most influence. But when they looked at an equal number of families where it was the mother, then the percentages dropped, which meant it was actually less than 40%, where if the mother was the one who was spiritually strong, the father would not necessarily follow that. And the children also tended to deviate. So the whole family now looked to where the father was.
Yeah.
So if the father was the one who did not want to go to church, did not want to embrace spirituality, then the children adopted that. And that's why you'll find families where you find the mother is a prayer warrior. Powerful, spiritually powerful. Then the father was deviant. What happened? Almost all the children followed, leaned towards the father. And the mother remained prayerful and strong and active, prayed for the children. And the children will always recognize, our mother, she's very prayerful and very spiritual. But they did not feel compelled to follow because the father did not model the same, right? So our families are fractured along the line of fatherhood. It's a very clear fracture that needs to be mended, that needs to be restored.
And actually, when I'm listening to you, what is running through my mind is that the role of a father in a family cannot cannot be ignored.
Correct.
And the presence of that father also is important. Because I think it's also one of the influential people around, Simon Bevy, he said, a research was done and 70% of those men that were in prison grew up without a father.
Correct.
Or with an absent father.
Correct.
Okay, Keith, this absent father, assuming we have this setup in this society where the man is absent or he's been, let's say, intimidated by this very strong woman, chosen to stay far. So we need to see how we can start bringing this man back. So what are some of the ways or things that can be done to encourage the man to come back to his position, to his role, and play his role as the man of the home? Because truth be told, the woman will give birth to a son, but she can never raise a man. So that man needs to be raised, to be called out by this man. So what are the things that we will do to call out this man back to his place, to raise the generation that we want to see?
Thank you for that. At a most basic level, the education system, an emphasis, I don't know if it can be legislated, that there ought to be a percentage of male teachers, especially in every level of learning, especially primary school. When you talk about gender balance, it's usually mostly competing for parliament and places of power. But when it comes to the foundational levels, there ought to be a legislation to push for.
Do you think men have the grace to keep repeating, for example, the alphabets 10 times?
Yeah.
I think that's why they also miss that chance.
That's true. But I'm talking about this from the perspective from the education system. Because children spend a good percentage of their lives
in school. Yeah.
And therefore from the school setup.
Yes.
But at a practical level, and this is something closer to us, the church, intentional programs, which we thank God for people like Simon Bevy, who are intentionally fathering the unfathered dads.
Yes.
That programs such as these, what you're doing, the intentional hosting of events to champion the empowerment of dads. Something, if you notice, and I'm thankful you are intentional in setting this up. If you are to look around and see how much is going out there with an intention of empowering the man, very little. But a podcast show like this, you can see how the great job we're doing with helping the ladies. So the intentionality of churches to reach out to young men and to reach out to men. I mean, Sitam Thika Road, and one of the things that we've done, which has worked very well, is not only to call men, but also group them in age groups. For example, the 30-year-olds to 35-year-olds are all in the same group, and all these age sets. So because men at the same level relate better. But then with regards to mentorship, there's an intentional program on how to interchange or make the cross-pollination, where the older men reach out to the younger and the younger reach out to older men. So intentional mentorship programs through the church, and specifically have them in age groups where they can relate with what's happening. Because also mentorship at just calling an event and calling the men conferences and all those things, they have their value, but follow-through rarely happens. So growth happens in circles, not pews. In pews you can throw all these nuggets, but it is in circles.
Yeah.
It is in circles that men get to, and not just men, but people get to connect. That's at the, let me say, corporate level. But at an individual level as a man, I always challenge men and ask them to answer these 4 questions. Number 1, who's holding your hand? Who's gone ahead of you? Who's doing what you want to do one day? Secondly, whose hand are you holding? As people pour into your life, into whose life are you pouring yourself into? Number 3, when was the last time you met? Okay, when was the last time you met? And then lastly, what are they keeping you accountable to work on? Because as we give these solutions on what the church ought to do, not all churches are as intentional in the mentorship of the boy child. Not all schools are intentional also in helping the young men.
Yes.
So before they do it for you, do it for yourself by answering these 4 questions. Who's holding your hand? Who has gone before you that is doing what you need to do? And whose hand are you holding? If you have people holding your hand and pouring into your life and you have no outlet, you become a dead sea. But if you have all people are withdrawing from you and you're not pouring into others, and no one is pouring into you, become a dry sea. So we need to avoid these extremes of becoming a dead sea where everything you're just sitting in all podcasts, getting to go for all the meetings, you're just consuming, and having no one to empty your life into. So that's an intentional tool I'd share with the audience. Answer those 4 questions and answer them authentically. I can use my relationship with Kelvin. We've driven to work many days on many mornings. And as we sat in traffic, we get to have authentic conversation. So the question of who's holding your hand, I have Kelvin. Whose hand are you holding? I have quite a number of young people, and I can give you names of people I'm mentoring. When was the last time you met? As recent as last week with Kelvin and many others. What are they keeping you accountable to work on? There's some projects I've been sharing with him on those mornings. And he's driven me to work and brought me at the station I was working on. And as recent as today, during the shoot, I showed him, said, look, here's what we're talking about for the last 15 weeks. And so the men who don't have an answer to these 4 questions are vulnerable to a lot of depression and a lot of blind spot mistakes. Because there's nothing new under the sun. And if something is new to you, it's because you're new under the sun. With these 4 questions answered consistently, regularly, where you sit with men, you lose a hair, who's holding your hand? And if you don't have an answer, in other words, you don't have a father. Okay? Number 2, where's your Joshua if you're a Moses? When was the last time you met? What is Joshua challenging you to work on? And what is Moses asking you to work on?
But let me ask you at this point.
Yes.
I think there are men, a smaller percentage will be willing to come to that place of learning. I may be wrong, but from the few that I may have interacted with, men are not quick to open up to learning. That's why even when you call for a marriage seminar, sometimes more women will show up minus their spouses and not the other way. You'll hardly find a man showing up because the wife dropped somewhere, a child got sick. But the woman, even if the man drops, she will still show up because she's yearning to learn, to learn more, to hear more, to be more equipped than the male gender you represent, the 2 of you. Now, and I'm speaking from a place of I'm female, so you are the people who. So when we come to the kindergarten, like for example, I assume your child has already joined kindergarten.
Correct.
Do you think the men, as he says, would have the grace at that kindergarten level? You know what goes in there?
Yes.
Do you think men have the grace to bear with that, assuming they are given that opportunity to come and be teachers at the kindergarten level? Because most teachers, male, you find them from grade 5, 6.
Correct.
Now you're dealing with a teenager. So that boy who we want to mentor here starts to see that men operate at the place of authority and power. But these small things here, they are not my stuff.
That's a very good question. And just to echo what my brother has said, there is definitely a need in the early development stages of a child for the presence of male figures. I'll give my example. Through primary school, from class 1, actually from nursery school to class 8, I had only 2 male teachers. One was the headmaster, and there was only one other male teacher who was posted to the school. I think probably just as part of a regular posting. All the other teachers were female, including the class teachers. So in high school, because I went to an all-boys school, is where that trend now changed, and there was a balance. I would say there were just as many male teachers as there were female teachers, and naturally because this is a boys' school and these are teenagers. So there definitely needs to be a balance there. But you've talked about whether a man would be patient enough. Granted, in the early years of a child's development, women tend to be more effective at raising and teaching those children because a woman is by nature a nurturer.
Yes.
She's a nurturer. She's a life giver. I mean, if you look at the order of nature, when a woman gives birth to a child, or even if she's not given birth to a child, by nature she's able to nurture younger children. It's wired in us, in the human race, for women to behave that way. For men, we tend to find relevance in a child's life when they have reached the toddler stage and onwards, when they are not very dependent. Right? So you've asked an accurate question. Will men have the patience?
Yeah.
Now, to counter that, or as a solution to that, I'll give an example of where my child schools. They have a calendar for parents to come and teach the children every week.
Oh.
Every week.
Okay.
To come and lead morning devotion once a week, lead morning devotion and teach the children on a topic. Now, they normally understand that the dynamics of families are different.
Yes.
Some families are single mother families, single father families. Others, both parents are there, but probably only one parent will be available. But they insist that parents to come in and teach the children, and it rotates. So for the whole term, at least once a week, there's going to be a parent coming in to teach. Now, where the family setup is father and mother, the preference is that both should come.
Yes.
But more responsibility is placed on the father, even if he is not going to be available, to choose the date when he'll come and prepare for the topic, or probably prepare his wife for the topic. Right? Now that can be an answer, because children will see their fathers come to the class setup. And those children who are from maybe a single mother family will see, oh, so there's a man here who is teaching. There's a man here who is leading us in prayer, who's leading us in praise and worship. And more so for your child who is in the class, they will see, oh, so dad can actually lead prayer, can actually lead in worship, and can teach. So in the school setup, I think that needs to take a precedence. The other thing is in the home setup. How do we handle it in the home setup? Because we'll find that most of us as first-time dads, we were not taught about how to handle children. What do you expect when a newborn comes? Right? I was the last born. Or rather, I'm the last born. So I never got to see another child being nurtured by my father. Right? So I never got to see him change diapers. I never got to see him, wash a child, or wake up in the middle of the night, or feed a child with a bottle. So we have to have intentional mentorship of men in these areas. The same way we have Lamar's classes.
Yeah.
I've never been to one, but you've rightly said it. There's a tendency that those classes will be dominated by women in the course of the pregnancy. When my children were born, my wife was taken through classes at the hospital by the nurses on how to take care of a newborn, how to wash, how to do what. I was not present.
And even if you were present, they would look at you probably like you're...
Why are you here?
Don't you think you're in the wrong place?
Yeah, you're misplaced.
then societal expectations need to change, especially in African society, because there is that expectation that as a man, we unafanya nini na watoto? What are you doing with children? You're a man. You should be outside there with other men. But remember that these children are yours.
Exactly.
I mean, you played a part in their arriving here. So responsibility should be shared. So I think men need intentional mentorship on how to nurture children at a young age. How do you relate with young kids when they don't want to sleep in the middle of the night and you're tired, you need to rest? The patience. I remember my mom-in-law, firstborn, and we were so excited, you know, we're expecting a child. So the D-Day has come, the child has been born. Oh, we are so excited. Oh, this baby looks like who, looks like who. Sawa sawa. So we leave the hospital. You know, at the hospital, the nurses were doing a lot of the of the feeding, of the changing of the child, right? So we get home. Now that's where the rubber meets the road. You're the two of you with a newborn baby. So there's something my mother-in-law told me. She told me, son, you need to make time for this child now. Yes. Yes, you're busy. You have you're working and what, but now you need to realize you're a father. So you need to make time for your child. Yes.
At that point, at the learning point of, the baby comes home and, the two of you, regardless of the classes, from an experience of a mother, even if they took you for those classes of how to handle a baby, the practicality of it hits when you get home. The nurses are not there, the doctors are not there, and the two of you are practically learning on the job.
Correct.
The two of you. But I want to say, sometimes women, I don't want to say we learn faster, but we assume we have learned better than the men, yet we are learning on the same assignment, how to take care of this baby, how to understand why she's this fussy, when to change the diaper, how to change. We are both of us learning. But you find a woman will ask you, kwani unafanya aje? But mulipata mtu nyinyi wawili pamoja, the two of you. And sometimes probably our experiences as women tend to put the men away from that learning experience and all that. But for you, Keith, how has it, your baby is still relatively young, how has that experience been like for you, bearing in mind, as he says, there are no classes for the men to tell them this is how to handle a baby. You practically unapewa mtoi, pambana na hali yako huko mbele. So for you, how has that been like, and are there mistakes you made as you try to learn on the job?
Yeah, so yeah, there are quite a number. One of them, not understanding the difference between diapers and what's this other one? Baby pads.
Baby pads.
That one.
Hapa mimi ni expert, wacha nijue which is which.
Not knowing the different sizes,
okay.
Yeah. The confusion of going into a supermarket, everything looks the same. You buy things, unarudi nazo unaambiwa it's not that one. Now which one? The frustration of not knowing that the moods a first time mom goes through. And so unafeel kama na kukelelesha, tengeneza chai, it's too cold, chukua hii, like I'm sorry. So that was one, that was not knowing what to shop. Not knowing what the moods the lady is going through, and how to support her in that area. Even during we call it the labor, not knowing, hey, watcha. The screams, do we go to the hospital now? Remember we had false alarms. We went to the hospital thrice. We went to the hospital 3 times. Panda gari. No, go back. Okay. Okay. It was just. Thankfully, I have Kelvin and a neighbor. Kama was not here.
We also had ours twice.
Hey, that hospital.
Two false alarms.
You're here. Yes, again, yes. Go back. So not knowing at what point
How to respond.
how to respond, it was quite awkward.
Yeah.
But again, like you're saying, the intentionality of surrounding yourself with men.
Yeah.
The Bible says, he who walks with the wise becomes wise. It doesn't say, he whom the wise walk with. The posture of walking with is dependent on the foolish one. And this, in this case, is the
one who wants to learn the
Yes.
first time, Dad.
And a lot of men, I'm answering your question, I didn't play victim too long. I intentionally, I was always on speed dial, on Kev, and I got a fever. What do I do? You remember that calpol? What
Yes.
is? Yeah. And overheat, unaka hivi thermometer is it in the mouth, your nose. Fatherhood is not for jokers. Be a husband before you're a father.
Oh dear.
Yes.
As it reminded me, there's one time I was at the supermarket and this
Yeah.
guy, I found him standing at the aisles where they put the diapers.
Yeah.
And he was like, which one do I pick, which one? So I offered to help. I asked him, can I help? He was like, oh yes. I've been told to pick diapers. So I'm like, what's the age of the child? Male or female? And he's looking at me and almost wondering, why those many questions? I'm like, you want me to help you to pick the right size?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the age of the child? So when he got to the counter, he's looking at me, those ones of like, are you sure? The eyes could tell,
Yeah,
are you
yeah.
sure? I was like, we hacked this one. So I think, as you're saying, you have to be very intentional, be willing to learn, expose yourself to other men who've been there before,
Correct.
who can correct you, who can work with you, and at some point cheer you, even when you feel very frustrated.
Yes.
Because I'm trying to imagine when you come with sanitary towels instead of
Don't shout. Stop.
diapers.
Don't
I don't
say.
shout.
Yes. No, you don't. No, delete that. Edit. Sasa umesema.
Oh, dear. Oh, okay. I think that one needs to go into a book somewhere. For any other father who would feel like they
You need to know
didn't-
the difference because you've never bought these things.
Yes.
They all look the same color. All the children are the same. Changing diapers is
I'm
another
seeing a guy
thing.
on this side of the recording. He's
Yes.
saying, yeah.
Yes.
He's
When
agreeing.
changing, which side is? Where do you?
Which is the front, which is the back.
Unaweka mbele, then you strap from the back. No. Okay.
Is it the side that's
Try again
written?
in Araruka.
Is it the number?
It looks so neat, and you guys do it so quickly. Yeah?
Somehow,
Jaribu.
allow me to say, I
Yes.
think God has also wired a woman to learn very fast on the job. Because I'm trying to assume if she takes too long to learn and to navigate this journey, new journey, what will happen to that child?
Yeah.
So somehow she needs to learn the diaper changing, how to bathe the baby, to read the signs and the mood of the baby, to know when to respond to the baby. But I can assure you by the time you hit the second, the third child, you have acquired a PhD called life.
So how do you know the
From
difference
the school
between
of
wah and wah?
There's something in a mother.
No, how do you help? Because I've seen my baby crying. She's hungry. She's laughing.
So your wife is able to tell, okay,
Yeah.
that is laughing, that is crying. You know, that's why you get the difference now, and you're able to clearly appreciate also the role of the woman in that marriage, in that relationship.
Okay.
Because as she says, the nurturing nature in a woman is able to pick. Leave alone that if your child is playing outside and all the children are crying, I can tell you now that the loudest is mine. Yeah, the loudest among them is mine.
Yeah.
I'm able to pick. But
And
probably the father may not pick that.
Yeah.
And you're able to know that cry, huyo mtoto ameumia to what degree.
Yes, the cry can give you the degree, the magnitude of either the injury or whatever.
or the issue that has happened.
The issue that has taken place. So let's give it that also the men, God has also given you a space where you let the woman also first of all take a small lead on that particular nurturing role. But the supportive role that you play is very key, especially when the children are very young. That supportive role is very key because, well, the mother has to breastfeed, the mother has to do those nurturing roles that she has to. But a present father like you've been, and I appreciate you went and picked those are the diapers. Thank God you did, because you learned.
Yes.
And you will encourage another father who is behind you and tell them, listen, you can make this mistake, dust yourself off and move on. You learn. You don't beat yourself so hard. And of course, a supportive wife will not kick you out the door with your sanitary towels.
Forever. Forever. They will, but not forever.
So I would want to pick your experience with your father or with your father figure. How was it for you?
Wow, it's a very good question. I was fortunate to have been brought up by my biological father. I know for many that might not be the case. For one or two reasons. Could be a father maybe passed on, or the relationship did not work out. But kudos even to the men who stepped in to father children who did not have a father for whatever reason. You know, for others maybe a father was put in prison. It happens. And they get to now meet their real biological dad years later. So whatever the situation, appreciate the men who have taken a lead role. Could be a grandfather, could be a relative, could be another man, a stepfather. But my experience with my dad really shaped my concept of fatherhood. And it came from a place of deficiency for him, because he was without a father. Yes, his father and mother separated when he was young. So he was by and large brought up only by the mom. And now the other male relatives in his space. And being the first, he was the eldest son. He now assumed a role of a father to the children who were following him. In fact, he's now passed on, but most of my aunties and uncles, they normally say, your father raised us. So it was a tough space for him, because he didn't have an actively present father to model shape his thinking towards fatherhood. But what it did for me is that his experience now made him resolve to be present for us. So we had a father who, no matter what happened between them and mom, he never left the home, because he knew what it felt like not to have his own father. So he was always there. And he took an interest in our development constantly. He took us to school. Of course, because of the demands of life, it was a partnership between him and our mother, but he primarily ensured that we went to school. And that he was interested in our performance in school. That's one of the things I remember. Other than that is that he was always a present figure in the home. One of the benefits...
Did he attend your functions in school, like
he
sports
did.
day, Parents' Day, academic
He
day?
did. Anything to do with academics, he was always at the forefront. He never left that to our mom. In fact, he attended more of those. I think once or twice he was not able to because of the demands of work, and one of my sisters had to step in. But more often than not, for all of us, he was the one who attended. He kept all our report forms in his files. So he wanted to monitor our performance. So what that modeled to me was being involved in our children's growth and development. Then being present. I normally share that all my life, I never saw my father sleep out or come home in the wee hours of the morning after spending time with friends out there. Somehow it was wired in him that the moment he got children, because we have the stories from our mom, before the children came, they used to go out and party and do what. But when the children came, this man was always home. And he made sure that we found him if we came after him for whatever reason, which was very rare because it was also very strict. We had curfews. But we always found him seated in the living room having his dinner, watching news, or sitting and talking with mom, or reading the paper. So just that habit of presence taught me a lot. A father needs to be present. A father needs to be involved in his children's lives. A father needs to be firm. Firm as a decision maker, decisive. So he was the decisive one. He never used to sit on the fence. He used to challenge me, you know, especially I'm an only son, raised with girls. So he used to really challenge me and tell me, Kevin, this is not how men are supposed to behave. If I tell you we go somewhere, I don't expect you to take 30 minutes preparing yourself.
Unaoga nini?
Na kuna makeup
10 minutes is even a lot.
Unajipaka mafuta ya nini?
You know, one of the things that used to really challenge us, this man on Sunday morning, we used to know the moment tumesikia, he used to wake up singing on Sunday. The moment tumesikia mtu ameanza kuimba, countdown. Because
ama ya kuoga.
Ya kujitayarisha na kutoka, because within 15 minutes, that man will have showered, dressed, taken his tea.
Parapanda ikalia.
Yes.
That song.
So the moment we used to hear singing, mzee ameamka akianza kuimba, unaamka unaanza kujitayarisha haraka, because very quickly he'll shower, his clothes were ironed, they are prepared, he's dressed up, unastukia kwa mlango. And he used to say me, I don't leave anyone in my house when I'm going to church. If you're in my house, me, I'm locking my house, I'm going to church on Sunday. I don't leave anyone in my house. So if you don't want to go to church, you figure out where you want to go. Me, I want to lock. And he used to be the one with the keys, he would lock the door.
I think I'm relating with what you were saying.
Yes.
The best school is when what you're doing, not what you're telling.
Not
but
what you're telling.
Not what you're telling your children, but what you're actually doing. Because all the things you're saying are not what he said. It's what he did.
What you saw.
You know?
Correct. What we saw. And if I can now speak on the spiritual side, our father got born again in 1986. Prior to that, he was an alcoholic. In fact, there's a book about his life. He was an alcoholic. He was messed up. Family was in shambles. Then he got born again, met with Christ. And the consistency in his life with reference to church attendance, it was not perfect. He had his flaws. But there's not a Sunday he would be seated in the house. It's Sunday, he knows he's supposed to go to church, and he just says, mi sijiski kwenda leo. Even through sickness. 1 week before he passed on, and he was sick, he went to church. He took himself to church, to the house of God. And that taught me something. That even if I wake up on the wrong side of the bed, unless I'm seriously unwell.
Or in hospital, admitted.
Yes. Or there's something that has taken over that day. There's an event that needs to happen. Probably we cannot make it to church. And exceptional cases, I need to be in the house of God. Yes. So he modeled it. You know, there are fathers who tell their children, amkeni mwende kanisa, tokeni to.
And then I'm a man.
And then kanisa, they even fathers who drop their children outside church. Anawadrop vizuri. Yeye anaenda kwa club, kwa sports club, ama narudi nyumbani anasoma gazeti, then comes back to pick the family. He taught us and modeled spirituality, responsibility, being involved in our lives, being firm and decisive. So I caught a lot of lessons about how a man is supposed to behave. What is the main thing? Keep the main thing the main thing. What is the important thing? Be emotionally strong. So those are the lessons that I learned.
Wow. Keith, picking from even what you had said earlier,
Yeah.
when I asked you about your daughter, you actually said, and is confirming it, you lead by example. Your words will not mean much, but your actions will speak volumes.
Yeah.
What was your experience for you with your father or the father figure in your life?
In my case, my parents got me when in campus, and so they never they never lived together. Having gone separate ways, they started families, different families, and got kids in those different families. But I stayed with my mom. Shortly after they got me in campus, my mom got remarried, got into a marriage setup. And my stepdad, growing up, was not very kind. It was now the opposite of everything Kevin has shared. The hostility, the hatred, the bile, being seen as just an accident, an interference to the marriage. And that really impacted my self-esteem and perception of myself. And again, looking back, they say that life is lived forward, but it's understood backwards. Looking back, I now understand why. Because if you're in a relationship with your wife and there's a child, because they got only girls, so this child that you've come with is a threat to my own marriage. And as it might be, you might think, my dad still is and still was well-to-do. And so there are days I used to go to meet my dad and then come back with things my stepdad couldn't afford. So no, sasa wewe, your dad is flexing to my wife through you. So of course you're considered as an interference. On my dad's side, and it's happening a lot today, blended families, broken families, it's such a touchy topic. On my dad's side, you could imagine being a firstborn son, you'd maybe think that my stepmom would see me as the potential taker of everything my dad owns. So of course you're an interference, you're a threat. So imagine you want to have a relationship with your dad, but he doesn't want to appear that he favors this one more because of the guilt trip. So there's mom here, there's dad here. So it wasn't I didn't have a very, very smooth start. How did that affect me? My wife normally laughs about it, and I don't have a memory of primary school, kindergarten. Throughout primary school, I was in a school in Kuliza. What did you learn in school? May I remember the canteen, the kitu ya kutik, milk card, and jumping into matatus. 44, piga skudi. That's what I remember in school. I don't remember my teachers. Because it's by the grace of God that I'm doing what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because childhood, it was very turbulent. How God began to change that narrative is that my mom's brothers, the Nyambane family, really came through. They really stepped in. And they stepped in because my granddad fathered them. And fathered them to show them who a man really is. Yeah. They grew up with a very hardworking granddad, my granddad, who used to wake up early. It doesn't matter the day of the week. He used to wake up extremely early. And so my uncles grew up seeing that. So by the time I was old enough to begin to ask who is a man, I grew up seeing my uncles work hard. And that changed. So
they modeled it already?
Yes. It has never happened. None of my uncles ever sat me down and say, this is who a man is. I saw it. Specifically, I have my Uncle Benjamin Nyambane, whom I stayed with towards quite a number of years before I got married. And I remember living with him, and our rooms used to be opposite each other. I remember seeing 4 a.m. his light under the door was always lit. He woke up to pray. He never told me men pray. I just saw it consistently. The other thing my uncle really taught me, so my uncles taught me work ethic, but this specific one, the close range, taught me specific things, the work ethic, prayer ethic. The other thing my uncle taught me was discipline. He used to tell me, in Kisi, young man is yeah. When you don't enter after I've entered. And if you're late, you must communicate. You must communicate, and that late was used to be 8 p.m. And so for quite a number of days, I do trainings. Sometimes I used to get carried away. I forget to communicate that I'm late. In that house, all of us used to have keys. If I come and he has locked the house from inside with the shafi, find yourself. Find where to sleep.
Tough love.
Tough love. But if I communicated early, and he had to sleep early,
Yeah,
he could
yeah,
lock
yeah.
from inside, I can open from outside.
Yes.
I slept outside for a number of nights. When David says, as the deer, not hiyo usiku, angoja hapo asubuhi, mimi nimengoja. Nimepigwa na baridi unashangaa. You look at your watch thinking it's an hour, unaangalia it's 12:03. Hey! You pray all prayers, you run out of content, unangoja tu asubuhi. And then in the morning I get to the ameamka. Yeah, good morning. Have you been? What do you mean I've been melala nje?
Kama roli?
Yes.
Eish.
I know how long nights can be through my uncle. And there was no bile, there was no hard feelings. Did I like it? I hated it. But now looking back, I ran my own family. I'm a businessman. Those disciplines helped me. I'm
also thinking
yes,
that kind of tough love needs to be exercised at some point.
Yes.
When you're raising a man.
yes,
Yes.
It needs to be exercised.
yes,
You should actually appreciate your uncle and take him for a holiday.
yes.
Paid holiday.
Yes, now looking back, I truly appreciate him. Because, mothers nurture
Yeah.
and mothers teach you how to be safe. But fathers train and they teach you security.
Eish. Fathers
Train and teach you
teach you security.
One of the blind spots of our first-time
Just
dad.
double tweets.
Yes. It's a blind spot. If you grew up with your mom only, that's a blind spot already. Because you've not been trained to be tough.
Yeah.
You've been raised to be safe. Mwizi anakuja, you jump under the bed. Listen, ni nani huyo? You back from under the bed. It's your wife running around with rungus. Because you are taught to be safe, not as a bringer of safety.
Okay. I cannot imagine.
Yes. So it's a blind spot. Your parenting can be a leverage or a blind spot. Either way. So childhood was not very, very safe. It wasn't very, what do you call it? Very smooth. But my uncles came through in my teenage and in my 20s. Watching my uncle work hard. He was single. And I never saw him bring women to the home. No matter the cash flow. What is he telling me? You can be rich and godly.
Yes.
And so I saw him doing very well in his career, but no ungodliness in between. And so even though I didn't grow up seeing how a father ought to take care of a toddler, the training I received by watching how a responsible man lives became a head start.
Yeah.
That even though I don't know how to change diapers, I know where to get the money.
Yes.
And so anything my wife needs, I'll purchase or pay for it. And so to those whose dads were not there, God is the ultimate father. Yeah. And the blind spots that are missing and the things that you don't know, first of all, you get to reconnect to God through Jesus Christ. And then you allow yourself to be submitted to the disciples of Christ. Because let me give you a story. There's a time I had a kabambe phone, and then it fell into water. Then asking around, how do I fix this? As you might know, someone recommended take this phone and place it in rice and leave it to stay there for a few hours. And as you'd expect, the next day, it was throughout the night, the next day the phone that had died had come back to life. So what was destroyed by one environment was restored by a different one. Yeah. As men, we were born in a broken world. Like my phone, we were thrown into a sinful world. Irrespective of what kind of dad you had an imperfect one. Yeah. So you're broken in one way or the other, and its brokenness automatically became your blind spot. So, broken through childhood, but restored through the church. Yeah. So, Kelvin is one of those people. When I was now looking for somewhere to settle my family, when the baby was coming, I remember meeting him. And before he said, how are you? He asked me, where do you stay? Okay? And I'm like, actually, I'm looking for somewhere to live. Because I was not a dad before, I don't know the requirements of a growing child, which is compound. For me, I was thinking budget, which house will fit my budget. But for him, he came and said, the reason we're staying where we're staying is because we have a compound and kids can play and the houses are spacious. As a first-time dad, I wouldn't know that. It's now looking back to realize, wow, I didn't know that. But how did I get to meet Kelvin? Through the church. independent of who your dad was or how good or not so good he was, you need to be plugged in. You need to be submitted under disciples of Christ, not just men. Men are sitting in bars. Those men are not good for you. They're actually helping to destroy you further and further. A man in darkness is an automatically blind spot. He's in the, you know, when you're in darkness, you can't see what you're doing. So men like Kelvin, my uncles, really came through. My father-in-law is another man I really honor and really look up to him. I've seen him model positive masculinity. And to that point, I want to say that masculinity is not taught, it's bestowed. And it's not bestowed through a conference, it's bestowed through a lifestyle and a continuous journey. I mentioned earlier that with Kelvin, we've had a lot of conversations driving to work. The masculinity, we've sharpened each other by asking what his wife as a share mine. So to the men that you didn't have an advantage growing up, do not, Joshua Selman said, you are born looking like your parents, but you'll die looking like your decisions. Sawa sawa.
Tweetable tweets.
Yes. So it's true you could have started with not from a head start, but growing up you can blame your ancestors. But the older you get, you move from being, you stop moving from my background, you become the background. So now that my baby has come on board, I can no longer talk about my background. I am the background.
Yes.
So I have to also take the responsibility and say,
Oh, yes.
I had no choice over my ancestors. There's a descendant in the room. What kind of fatherhood am I bestowing on this child?
Wow. We are truly learning a lot that you're born looking like your parents, but you die looking like your decisions that you choose to take and make in life.
Yeah.
So as we land, what would be your parting shots, briefly, to a man out there who is going through some struggles?
Wow. Parting shot to a man who's going through some struggles. There's a difference between weakness and vulnerability. And our society has confused men, whereby vulnerability is interpreted as being weak.
Yes.
When I say vulnerability to authority, vulnerability to other men, and vulnerability to learn, is being interpreted as weakness. So there's a difference between being vulnerable and being weak. Being vulnerable does not make you weak as a man. You leverage on the strength of other men. Dr. Miles Monroe, the late, once said, and I quote, that a man can only, a boy can only become a man in the presence of other men.
Yeah.
And we have many boys out there. A boy in terms of mentality. Because manhood is not necessarily physical stature or acquisition of possessions. Or age. It has to do with emotional strength, and your ability to lean on other men defines your strength as a man. There is no room for being a lone ranger anymore. There is no room ya kufa kimwanaume, as many men have been taught that a man lazima ukufe kimwanaume. Unaambia watu shida zako za nini? That is one of the biggest lies that men have been told there. And when you say a struggling man is a man who has neglected vulnerability. So you have to find older men. Titus, the book of Titus chapter 3 talks about older men. Teach the younger men to be pure. Right? To be temperate. Temperate means control. Strength under control. In that you're a man, you have strength. In your youth, you have physical strength, you have mental strength. Be temperate. Come under control. Come under leadership. Come under instruction. accountability. The same way Keith mentions me, I mention him as an accountable partner, because when we talk, I'm vulnerable to him. I share my struggles with him because I'm talking to a man, more so a man who knows Christ.
Yes.
So I would then advise a man who's struggling, look for men who are following Christ. Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ.
Yeah.
So look for mentors who are godly. Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of the scornful. So, blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the ungodly. In life, as a man, you're either walking under the counsel of the godly or the ungodly. There is no in between.
Yeah.
So there are men who are godly in your life, and there are men who are ungodly also in the sphere of life. You have to choose who will pour into you. Who will you open yourself up to? There's a man you can go to and open up about a struggle in your marriage, and he'll tell you, unasumbuka nini na wasichana ni wengi. Counsel of the ungodly. They are scornful of marriage. There's a man who you'll go to and open up about a struggle in your family, and they'll tell you, you know what? Me, I don't waste time. I do A, B, C, and D. This is what I do. But there's another man who will tell you, you know, you have to pray about this situation. Can we pray about it? Keith is a man who we pray every morning when we take that drive. We pray. So my advice to a parting shot to a struggling man, to a struggling dad out there are answers around you everywhere for every question, every problem you face, not only as a father but as a man. You just need to reach out and get support. And I also want to appreciate the women who have nurtured us, the mothers and the wives and the sisters, because also they also play a part to a man. But then you need to know which woman you should be vulnerable to. Be vulnerable to your wife. Be vulnerable to your mother or to a sister. Don't be vulnerable to a strange woman out there, because you will lose your strength as a man. Yes.
Wow. Thank you so much. Your parting shot, Kid.
So thank you. As we're sharing, I thinking about what you said, that men don't show up for events that empower them. To a struggling man, if this was a tap, a cup must come under the tap to receive from the tap. If a cup insists and goes on top of the tap, it cannot receive of what the tap has to offer. And in this tap, I mean, God has placed men and women in this society to empty into his people. If you're not in a position of humility, those men and women will be of no value to you, and you'll continue to blame your predicament on your childhood. And so, where are you positioned? I was in a show today and I was asking people, when was the last time you sat next to someone and they made you feel foolish? Not in insulting, just as you spoke your mind and the questions they asked you or the advice they gave you felt, I need to up my game. Moses was called of God, very anointed. He had a face-to-face with God. But God didn't give him counsel on how to run the nation. It took a Jethro, someone who came and watched him and said, Utakufa, what are you doing? He mentioned all the exploits, and then Jethro said, you know what? You're going to die. So to the men out there, I want to challenge you. Who's your Jethro? In these dreams that you're thinking of, have you permitted a man above you to challenge? Again, position. We are peers with Kelvin, but we've taken a certain position and posture to each other. He shares his dreams as I share mine. So struggling is not sinful, and there's no condemnation in it.
Yes.
But staying struggling is the issue.
Yes.
So where are you positioned? With regards to marriage, finances, and all these things. Mentorship is a situation where you allow the hindsight of someone to become foresight for your future. If you want to build a business, there are men who've done business. Ask questions. if you are struggling in your marriage, there are people who succeeded in marriage. When was the last time you knocked at the door of someone who succeeded in what you're failing in? The truthful answer to that question is the reason you're struggling. Thank you.
Wow. We truly hope that you have learned something, and not just something, a lot. You have something that you can, or a place where you can start to work on the few areas that you may be struggling with. Because as we said when we were beginning, there's a way that God intended for us to do life. And as he said, you may be given the position, but the how to do it, you have to learn it from either those who've been there before, or expose yourself to the men that can speak and call you out from the challenges that you're going through. So don't get stuck, don't remain struggling, expose yourself. And as he said, you have also to be vulnerable for you to be able to learn and unlearn some struggles that you may be going through. Otherwise, God bless you. See you next time.